Once upon a time, a long, long, long time ago, there weren't any people on the earth. All the people were animals. So you might have been a dog, and you might have been a squirrel, and you might have been a chicken. We all were different kinds of animals once upon a time, a long, long time ago. And all of the animals, most of the time anyway, were friends. So God got to thinking and thought, you know, all of these animals are great, but I'm kind of lonely. I can't have a great conversation with a chicken, no offense. I want people on the planet. So God decided that they would turn all the animals into people. And the first thing that needed to happen is everybody needed a house to live in. So God said to all of the animals, we're going to build a house. You can all live in the house. It'll protect you when it rains, like it's probably going to do soon here, maybe. And it'll be warm in the winter and cool in the summer, and you can all each have your own room, and you can have your own cook fires. It'll be a fine place to live. And all the animals were happy to do this because they were tired of running around in the rain and getting sopping wet and smelly. You know how dogs smell when they get wet. So all the animals decided that they would build the house together. All of them, that is, except for Ti Malice. He was lazy even then, and he just wanted to lean back and watch everybody else do all the work. And so he sat off to the side and said, you know, you could use that hammer a little better, or drive that nail a little straighter, or I don't like that window being right there. And all the animals got really, really, really mad at him because he was being so lazy and wouldn't help. So they decided that when the house was done, they wouldn't let him inside, no matter how much he begged or pleaded, no matter how much it rained or stormed. And soon enough, the house was finished. All the animals had their own rooms, their own beds with soft sheets and nice fluffy pillows, except for Ti Malice, who was still sleeping outside, and he began to get a little bit jealous. So he knocked on the door, and they opened up the door and said, no, Ti Malice, you cannot come in, and slammed that door in his face. He scratched at the windows, he tried to dig up from underneath, he tried to do everything, but they would not let him in that house. But Ti Malice, he is stubborn. He decided that he was going to find a way into that house no matter what it took. So he waited until one night when everyone was fast asleep. The dogs were snoring, the cows were snoring, the chickens were snoring, the salamanders were snoring, even the frogs were snoring. And he snuck into that house, opened up the door just enough to let himself in, and snuck into the house, and then he slid underneath his uncle's bed. And he listened to his uncle snore. And Ti Malice thought to himself, well, this isn't any fun. I'm not going to get to see any of the house this way. So he made his voice as big and scary as he could, and he said, this is the voice of God. Everyone should leave the house. Most of the animals woke up and listened, and he said it again. This is the voice of God. Everyone should leave the house. And most of the animals just ran out as fast as they could because it was so scary hearing this voice telling them to get out of the house they just finished building, except for Ti Malice's uncle, who kept snoring away right on top of that bed. Do you want to tell a story what I'm talking? And he kept snoring and snoring while Ti Malice kept saying, this is the voice of God. Everyone should leave the house. Finally, he got fed up and he kicked the bottom of the bed. And he kicked it again, and his uncle finally stopped snoring a little bit, and he repeated himself one more time. So his uncle stretched and shambled out of the house. Ti Malice got up. He started looking around. He looked at all the beautiful rooms and the beautiful furniture. He had himself a little bite to eat in the kitchen, and he was feeling pretty good. Now, meanwhile, all the animals were really wondering what had happened and why they'd been thrown out of their house, so they decided that they would send someone to check it out. They sent Mr. and Mrs. Cat. Mr. and Mrs. Cat came sneaking up to the house as quietly as cats can, and they looked on the porch. There was Ti Malice, walking back and forth, strutting as though he owned the place. Well, the cats walked right up to him, and they said, Ti Malice, what are you doing in our house? And he said, I came by, and it was completely empty, so I thought I would take a look around. He was lying. And then the cat said to him, well, you have to leave. This is our house. Ti Malice thought to himself, I don't want to leave this house. And then he knew what to do. He bent down and he picked up a piece of broken glass off the ground, which you should never do. And he said to Mr. Cat, I'm going to a big party tonight. I just need your help. Can you shave me, please? Because it's very hard to shave with broken glass. And so Mr. Cat said, well, I guess I can help. So he shaved Ti Malice. And then Ti Malice said, yes, and can you help me brush my teeth? Because I'm going to this big party and I don't want to have stinky breath. And so the cat helped him brush his teeth. And then Ti Malice said to Mr. Cat, you know, I would like you to come to the party with me too, but you really should be shaven too. And so the cat said, will you help me? And Ti Malice said, of course. So he shaved Mr. Cat. And then he said, well, let me brush your teeth as well, so no one will be offended by your rather catty breath. So the cat opened up his mouth and stuck out his tongue, and Ti Malice grabbed onto his tongue and pulled it right out of his mouth. And the cat yowled as best as he could without a tongue and ran out of the house into the jungle as fast as he could. And Ti Malice leapt and tried to grab Mrs. Cat, but she too ran. Now, Mr. Cat, he ran back to the people, back to all the other animals, and he tried to tell them what had happened, but because he had no tongue, he couldn't talk. Instead, he just went, "Ow! Ow! Ow!" Which is why to this day your cat doesn't talk to you in a language that you can understand. Mrs. Cat, however, she ran out into the jungle, and she was so frightened that she never went back. She just spends all of her time now sneaking around, jumping on birds and mice instead. And all the other animals were so scared of what had happened in the house that they never went back into the house again and left Ti Malice in charge. Which is why, from that day to this, your dog or your cat never wants to stay inside and always tries to sleep. Thank you.